What's going on, everybody? My name is Justin Gossi for the Sports Beat Network. Thank you so much for checking out tonight's video. Tonight, guys, we're here talking about NFL Week 4 of the NFL season. We're going to be recapping some of the big games on the schedule on tab for this week. We are now, about to head off into the sunset for Week 5. So I'm going to take the time and, cover some of the big games that happened around NFL this week. There's just so much to talk about. So let's get right into this. We are now talking about the 4:05 game between the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road taking on the San Diego Chargers. And starting tonight for the Jacksonville Jaguars is Blake Bortles. A lot of people are expecting, Blake Bortles to start at some point this year. A lot of people will be saying it will be after Week 5 at some point. But you know what? Week 4 has come, and Blake Bortles is your starter. Chad Henne has just lost the entire offense, has lost faith in, the entire offense just not really connecting with Chad Henne. So Blake Bortles comes in the fourth quarter last week and really, went to work. Gus Bradley names him the starter, and this sets up the matchup: Phillip Rivers versus Blake Bortles. I'm a huge San Diego Chargers fan, but I'm not biased at all, and I'm like, this is such an honor. I really like to see Blake Bortles. A lot of people are saying that this is going to be a game that's going to be thrashed around. I honestly thought this was going to be one of the closest games that San Diego will ever have on their schedule, because when you look at the San Diego Chargers, this team came in, injury prone. Ryan Matthews is gone, Danny Woodhead is gone, Melvin Ingram is gone, the Manti Te'o is gone, he broke his foot, he's out 10 weeks. This team has also gone down the road of bringing in some, guys who you may not know, but these guys have came in and really made a big impact. Cordero Law today, he made a huge impact today. So San Diego is pretty much working with second and third string linebackers and, reserves, taking on a Jacksonville Jaguars team that, when you look at, have all, the talent together, from Toby Gerhart to Blake Bortles to Clay Harbor, Alan Hurns, Allen Robinson, Cecil Shorts III, Jordan Todman. As time progresses, I would expect the Jacksonville Jaguars team to be a little bit more advanced. I'm saying 2 to 3 years down the line, I can see this Jacksonville Jaguars team being that competing team. And you gotta get some, more, familiarity with the playbook for Blake Bortles. He's an excellent quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback. This is his first ever start. He's gonna have the jitters. But you know what? In the first half of today's game, no jitters. Blake Bortles comes out and delivers what he promised he would do, and he delivered in the first half. In the second half, it was a little bit rough, but you know what? The Jacksonville Jaguars, statistic-wise for Blake Bortles, was very, very solid for, a guy who's making a huge impact. He was, one of the top selections in this year's draft, but you know what? You've got to give him the credit. He's working around an offense that, does not have, the most highlighted pieces. He's not going to, all of a sudden, make Allen Hurns, the next Randy Moss. He's not going to take Allen Robinson and make him the next, for example, Wes Welker. He's not going to end up doing that. He needs more time to really, work with the wide receivers and everything like that. But today was a very, it was a good step forward for Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like what I saw. Blake Bortles kept it very close in the first half, putting up 14 points. 17-14. San Diego going into halftime with the lead. Coming outside, it was all San Diego, putting up 16 points, 20 unanswered points by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And today, I think that's what really killed this team, is that the team's defensive, the defensive backs just cannot cover. They do have, some of the talented defensive backs, much younger guys, a much younger generation in football down the line. A Jonathan Cyprien. They have these great pieces, but the coverage is not great. I think when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars going down the line, going into the 2015 draft, they would have to draft some defensive backs, get some defensive help. The line is solid. The linebackers could add a piece or two, but it's all about, your safeties and corners. That is what kills the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight. Eddie Royal was able to break away from the coverage and got 2 touchdowns on the board tonight. And also Malcolm Floyd got into the end zone tonight. So San Diego was just, airing the ball out tonight. No rushing whatsoever. Phillip Rivers just, took it to the air, putting over 300 yards on the board for the over the Jacksonville Jaguars with 377 yards passing, only missing 10 of his passes. 29 for 39. Another accurate day for Phillip Rivers. Hats off to him. 3 touchdowns, and this is a season where Phillip Rivers could potentially be the MVP. A lot of people are saying, DeMarco Murray, San Diego Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers. Throw in Peyton Manning. It's everyone's ball game, but this is a start of the season that we've never seen San Diego have. Starting 2-6, 1-3. 2-3, 2-5. San Diego always had those slow starts because, the Phillip Rivers turnovers, the interceptions. But the past couple of years, Phillip Rivers has really came out of his shell and is now seeing that, that elite side of Phillip Rivers, having the most, years upcoming forward is going to be his best years. I think this is going to be a step in the right direction for the San Diego Chargers football. And, I'm not, trying to overspeak and oversay, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a hard team. They are kind of the weakest team in the NFL. But then again, this game was, kind of close in the first half. I was kind of getting kind of nervous. I was expecting this game to be, 27-24 Chargers victory. That's what I projected to have it as. But, San Diego was able to run away with it, 20 unanswered points by the Jacksonville Jaguars. San Diego defeats the Jacksonville Jaguars 33-14 at the end of the day. San Diego's 3-1, 2-0 at home, defeating the Jaguars tonight and defeating the Seattle Seahawks, as the Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-4 on the year, 0-3 on the road. This is a struggling team. Blake Bortles still needs to get a more grasping hand. Get a little bit more, close to the receivers. Try to have him, work with the speed that he likes to. Have him feel a little bit more comfortable. This is just step one for Blake Bortles. You still have next week. You can still add on wins. You're still going to have, a potential top 5 draft pick next year. I'm not saying, suck for the rest of the year, but, you can still work your way into having a successful season, statistic-wise. But I don't see Jacksonville Jaguars really competing for anything this year. It's kind of like in the rebuilding phase. Gus Bradley's leading it. Blake Bortles is leading it. So the future is now for Jacksonville. Now it's just, getting, Blake Bortles a little bit more familiar to the offense. So let me hear your guys' opinion about this as the San Diego Chargers defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 33-14. My name is Justin Gossi for the Sports Beat Network, and I'll catch you guys in my next